ministers, the Chief of Defense Forces, other generals, and all the officers and militants of the UPDF, and the family of General Aronda. You cannot talk about Aronda without talking about the history of Africa, because the NRA struggle was not just a military struggle. It was first and foremost a political struggle, which had to, in the end, use the military means to solve these problems. So therefore, since the political struggle is a long story, I wanted to recommend to the seminar, the ones who are involved in this, a speech I made in 2020. It is entitled, How Africa Missed the Bus of History. This booklet gives you very detailed analysis of how Africa got left behind. Now, the short speech, which I will read here, is an attempt to contextualize that long story and point out where the Arondas come in. In this short speech, I wrote, you cannot talk of the late General Aronda Nyakerima's role or that of other NRA UPDF personnel without understanding the Africa of 1900 at the dawn of colonialism and what happened subsequently. While much of Africa had been ravaged by the slave trade for 400 years, by that time, by 1900, our part of Africa had not been so much affected by the slave trade, although there were some isolated incidents of slave snatching. That's why Banyankole believed that Goans were cannibals, that Goans were Abagohan Bariabantu. They believed that Goans, I don't know why they thought of Goans, but I think it was because of this kidnapping by the slave traders. The late Aaron Muhinda, I remember very well, died in 1955 when I was in primary 3, had been liberated from slavery at the coast of Mombasa. He is the grandfather of our permanent secretary for tourism, Silva Katsime. I don't know whether Katsime Silva knows this. Her grandfather, Aaron Muhinda, had been taken as a young slave boy to Mombasa. And that's where he was liberated by the missionaries, Bishop Taka. And when he was there, he met a Munyoro woman who had also been kidnapped, a girl, and they got married and produced Katusime's father, this PS, who was named Kuku after Dr. Albert Cook. You remember the other Cook? So this man died in 1955 when I was in primary 3, and I was. They were being captured in tribal wars fomented by the bankrupt kings and then sold in slavery. However, the whole of Africa, and indeed our part of Africa, was still in the pre-capitalist mode of production and society. The societies were feudal or pre-feudal primitive communalism societies. The production of wealth was organized in emyoga, this word which I encouraged you to use recently, was organized in emyoga, specialized skills. I would use the Nyankore versions, but you can put them in any other language, such as okuhinga, growing crops, kulisa, herding cattle, and general livestock keeping, okuhesha, blacksmithing, okubeja, carpentry, okunogora, pottery, okomaga. Okomaga, this is making back cloth. Oktanaga. You know, these people were very advanced. They were doing everything. Oktanaga. That is making bows and arrows. Okurema. Shoemaking. Okhara. Leather making. Okujuba. Fishing. Okhara. Leather making. Oh, I have repeated that. Okshachira, general medical work. Okuragura, divination. Okujenga, surgery. You know, these people had surgeons, abajenji, who could remove bones from inside you. Sailing, they had professional water people called abadimbi. That's what they were called. This is in Nyankore. You can go and put it in other dialects. These yoga were being done by communities. A community could specialize in something, the whole community. By communities, clans, you could have the clan of Abahesi. They are known that clan is a clan of blacksmith. They do it as a clan. Or of families on a hereditary basis. Yeah, on a hereditary basis. I am a blacksmith. My children and grandchildren will be blacksmith. And everybody knows that's what we do. We don't go into crops. The Muhesi doesn't go into crops. The people do crops and they bring them to him. And then he gives them They would then okuchuluka barter trade with the other families to get what they needed, but did not make themselves. The long distance trade to the coast was being done by the Abalunganwa. This is a corruption of the Swahili word waungwana. This Banyankole here say, this is Barunganwa. But it meant waungwana. You can hear some names called Karunganwa. Some families, if you check, people were using those names. These were mainly the Banyamwezi from Tabora in Tanzania. That tribe from Tabora, the Wanyamwezi, were the ones doing this trade between the inland here and the coast of East Africa. They would bring textiles, emyenda, glass beads, enkwanzi. When you hear this kyenkwanzi, which the Waganda mispronounce as kyankwanzi, it is kyenkwanzi. I think they named it kyenkwanzi because it is flattish. As you can see, it is flattish. And when it rains, you get some floods, which then shine in the sun like beads. This is what I think. I think that's what they call it, kyenkwanzi. Because that kyenkwanzi means the place of the beads, of the glass beads. Guns, they would bring guns. The people from the coast, these guns had started coming. Embundu, obuganga, gunpowder, and so on. There was some limited use of cowrie shells, and CMB as money. That is why one of the words for money is CMB. Even today, the old people would call money CMB because of the cowrie shells. The other word for money is mpiha, rupiah from mpiha, from rupiah, because that was the currency being used in India when the British were here. So they were bringing it here, rupiah. My grandfather was using rupiah. If you hear songs praising my grandfather, they will say he bought a cow with rupiah as part of praising him that he was a wealth creator. However, so this was when you are talking about Aronda, what all these big people, go back to where it all starts. It starts with the politics. The politics about what? About society. So that's why I want you to go back. So this was the economy of Uganda and maybe Africa before colonialism, before 1900. However, the pre-colonial dominant mode of trade was by barter trade, with mainly abebunzi. Abebunzi are the itinerant hawking traders. These who go around hawking. Those are called abebunzi. Okubunzia is to hawk. The Luganda word for hawkers is, I think, abatembei. Waliwo Abaganda wano? Abaganda ennaku zino omanyi bakendera waliwo beta Abaganda. wali omuganda ddala wano ogenda osanga abalundi nti be baganda